Hello, and welcome to another episode from Season 6 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a passion for scary movies. Each week we pick a different horror movie and dissect it to figure out what it was trying to accomplish, how well it did, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season we're changing things up. We're devoting a whole season to reviewing Esquire's list of the 50 scariest movies of all time. In each episode, we'll break down a different movie, talk about how scary it really was, and then update our rankings to prove how much smarter we are than the other people on the internet. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the conversation. So I guess this is just kind of a one-off bonus. We're abandoning the burden of Esquire's list of the 50 scariest movies of all time, even though it's not, for a week. And we wanted to say, first of all, Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving!
And second of all, we watched a Thanksgiving horror movie.
Yeah. A new Thanksgiving horror movie.
Yeah, in honor of the holiday.
Yeah, it came out November 1st.
Yeah.
It felt good. It felt good to be back on our own terms.
Yeah. Well, and this too, I got really excited about because we had talked about the idea of doing a Thanksgiving horror movie, but we couldn't really come up with one. And then we started looking around online and found, like, oh, Blumhouse and Hulu put one on, and I was like, absolutely yes, I want all of that. So, but the name of the movie is Pilgrim, and it was released, like you said, November 1st, 2019. But I didn't realize until reading about it after I'd watched it that this is technically an episode of a series.
Right, yeah.
Called Into the Dark. Mm-hmm. Which releases a holiday-themed horror movie every month, and it's been going on over a year now. Yeah,
I was definitely... I didn't know until after I watched it, and was trying to find facts about it, and I was like, why does it keep pulling this Into the Dark thing up? And I was getting pissed, and then Katie, she was kind of trying to help me find some facts, and she's like, oh, it's a series. And I was like, oh, I'm dumb.
Yeah, well, I had a really hard time finding stuff about it online as well. Like on IMDb, if you look for Pilgrim, this doesn't come up. You have to look at Into the Dark and then go to the Pilgrim episode. So it's kind of weird, but I am excited to go back and watch more of this now. Yeah. But it also makes a lot more sense because a lot of the like reviews and stuff about this that I was reading said, oh, this is much better than their other Thanksgiving episode. And I was like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, it all fell into place eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of surprised we hadn't heard about this already. And looking back through ratings of some of the previous episodes, I guess it makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
But I thought this one was really well done. And I don't have like anything formal on it. I figured we could just talk a little bit because it's a holiday. And yeah, you know. Just freewheel.
There wasn't too many facts about the movie as well, but I didn't like while watching it. I kept thinking and without knowing, I knew nothing about this movie. Without knowing anything about the movie, I thought this feels like a TV show. I the way it was. I just kept kind of going back to that, the way it was being filmed. I guess kind of reminded me almost like a '90s TV show in a way, but
interesting.
And the weird shots and weird kind of humor. But I was it was just kind of nice to watch I was just almost smiling, just excited about watching a horror movie based on Thanksgiving. It's just breaking the tradition.
Yeah. Well, and it was really nice that it was Thanksgiving actually mattered to the plot.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just this horror thing happens to happen during Thanksgiving. It was, I guess, the basic kind of overarching idea of the movie, so close your ears if you don't want spoilers, is that a very well-to-do family hires some first Thanksgiving reenactors to come to their house and put on a very traditional, historically accurate Thanksgiving dinner. Because I guess that's a thing rich white people do. And so then the people come, but they end up being super weird, almost cult-like. And they end up staying, and then more pilgrims start coming, and then they basically create a pilgrim settlement in the backyard and almost have the parents like a little bit hypnotized or something and start like killing some of the people around, and then it just gets super dark and brutal. But anyway, the idea is the whole thing is happening with Thanksgiving. There's a lot of talk about, you know, the family being punished because they're not thankful for what they have, and it was just very ingrained in sort of the history of Thanksgiving and tradition, and all of that was a sort of central part of the storyline, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, it definitely, I wondered if it was going to get to that, like being thankful kind of thing just from the get-go, and you could kind of tell with Cody being kind of a dick at the beginning. But yeah, it definitely pulled the whole, I mean, like, it was a Thanksgiving being thankful horror movie. I mean, just as far as, you know, towards the end, they were like, are you thankful now?
Yeah.
Like, so much that you thought it was going to be a dream, but...
Yes, I really did think it was going to be,
like a bad dream.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, just from how well it was made, I mean, for something made as an episode, basically, a once every month type thing, it was really high quality. I mean, the camera work I thought was amazing and very creative. And, you know, even when they were using, we've talked before how in some movies, it's like the camera is always doing something. So it's never like they just set it in the corner and let people go. It's like quickly cutting between people's faces to get reactions, or it's moving slowly to give you like a different perspective on the scene, or it's like it's coming from a weird angle that makes things look creepier. Or with this one, even they used like a fisheye lens a fair amount. Yeah. So even on like super normal scenes where it's just a bunch of people standing around talking, you have that sort of distortion around the edges of the screen, or it's like tilting a bit left and right. So you just never feel safe and comfortable based on like what you're seeing. It's always just something that your brain is having to pay attention to and trying to make sense of on top of what's going on in the movie. And I like that. I think that's pretty effective for a horror movie, especially one like this where it's trying to build up the tension and suspense.
Yeah, I think that whole fisheye lens is what reminded me of something from the 90s, like almost like a commercial or something. But yeah, I was you know, like when I looked it up on Hulu before we started, I always look at the time because I judge movies on time.
Oh, like how long it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw it was an hour and 20 minutes, and I literally cheered out loud. I was like,
yes. Yeah.
I was like, here we go. But it makes sense now that it, you know, being shorter, you know, being a series. But yeah, I think it was also kind of crazy so specifically within the characters, how it almost seemed like there was like a supernatural, like almost like they were supernatural. And I'm basing that off of
the Pilgrims.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm basing it off of specifically, you know, the female when she's churning the butter and like just blood's coming out of her hands and whatever, and then she gets stabbed,
and then it's just like totally fine.
yeah, she gets stabbed in the head, but like I liked it though. Like I like not.
Yes.
Like I mean, the hands kind of stopped it, but it's like it didn't. It was crazy. I mean, you're thinking like, oh, okay, she's gonna die, you know, you would think, but no, she just kept going, and I thought that was pretty cool because you didn't know like what was happening here, you know, where it was coming from.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then there was the thing when they got out of the stocks and they attacked the builder guy, and like smashed his head with the rock, and then that didn't kill him. You know, like there were just a lot of scenes where they were sort of like more than human. And that kind of added to what was scary about him, because you really didn't know much. You just knew something was off. And then you got these little glimpses into them being, you know, like slightly harder to kill than normal people, which means what is powering them. And
Well, and I also thought that maybe it could have been a neighbor, like the neighbors, because they were kind of talking shit on them at the party, thinking that they had something to do with it. But, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, like I said, I thought it was a well-made movie. I thought the acting was pretty good. It had kind of a weird, dark sense of humor that I thought was played off well. Because, you know, a lot of times with horror movies, when they try to add humor, it just gets really corny really fast. But I thought in this one everything kind of fit. Like I felt like the acting was calibrated through all of it, which was nice. I do think that the script was maybe a little less finished than it would be for like a real like feature film. There were some things that didn't really get explained or make a whole lot of sense in it. Like, oh yeah, well they need to stay with us for a while, but why? They never really answered that question. There were just a few little things that didn't really get tied up.
Yeah, I noticed, like, I can't tell you any specifics, but I just noticed that there were a couple times throughout the movie of just kind of chuckling, like at random things, that either the Pilgrims did or what. But to go in, like, how it seemed a little unfinished as far as, like, the scenes, I would say another thing was what I kind of noticed was when, because for me, like, they show up in the Pilgrim, like, outfits and looking like real authentic and all that, and then there's the scene where Ethan's talking to the younger kid, the brother of Cody, and he gives him a piece of candy, and it's like saltwater taffy, and it's like I kind of wish it was like some other treat, like a berry or something, that could have tied into it. I think
like something that would have been authentic to the time, not something you would buy at Silver Dollar City now.
Right. That's exactly what I thought. I thought of Silver Dollar City. So there was just a couple things like that where it's like, oh, okay. I mean, like, granted, I wasn't the one making the film, but it's like, oh, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. But in general, like, it wasn't off enough to really be distracting. It was more stuff that you just kind of think about after the fact. And I don't think like the super complex storyline was the strength of the movie. And it was kind of a weird balance. And one reason I was interested in it is because anything Blumhouse is involved with is going to be like interesting and not 100% predictable and normal, in my opinion. And so what was weird for me about this one was that a lot of times it felt like it was going to be that very, I guess you'd call it like pop horror. Like, like really lightweight. So it's like, oh yeah, we went and saw this scary movie, but it's not actually scary. There's not any gore. There's not, like the full embrace of actually making a horror movie. But this, and just kind of because of the style of humor and everything that was set up in the beginning of this, I really thought it was going to be a lightweight, but it went hard towards the end. Yeah,
it went very, very hard at the end.
I mean, yeah, like, we went from, okay, well, we have these pilgrims and she's churning blood, but maybe that was just like a hallucination and the lady got poisoned. Okay, well, whatever. But then you have people getting axed and stabbed and branded and cannibalism, which we can't seem to get away from this year. And then like blood vomit. I mean, it went hard, man. And it got really, really intense there towards the end.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I mean, obviously, like, it was welcoming because it, definitely built up, and I think the way that it was accomplished, that they died, because you saw someone get stabbed in the head or the boulder in the dome and keep going, that I didn't think that they were going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then, it brought the berries into play, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then everyone starts throwing up blood and, like, bleeding from their eyes and stuff, and gets chopped up. It's crazy. It's also crazy, and something I definitely appreciate is the fact that not everyone survived.
Yes, I was going to bring that up as well. Yeah,
it was you want the the Hollywood ending story, and it's like, and it didn't, and not only did are we doing spoilers?
Yeah.
Anyway, not only did the dad not survive, his head was literally
served on a platter,
on a table,
and then used as a blunt object for fighting.
I was laughing. I was like, that's fantastic.
Man, there were a lot of parts in this movie that made me laugh out loud. Like when in the beginning when Cody and her boyfriend are at that like HOA meeting and they're talking and she said something like, yeah, just another episode of the Stepford Wives over here. I can smell ranch from my bedroom.
Yeah. I was like, oh great, Katie's gonna stop watching this.
That got me. And then there was the one where they're sitting around the table with Ethan and he's talking about like when he was on the Mayflower, like super in character and stuff, and Cody's like, well, speaking of reenactors, can I go to Rachel's for dinner tomorrow? They're hosting a Nazi. Oh man.
Yeah, at first it was at first I almost kind of thought Cody was being too much.
Yeah.
I was kind of frustrated with her because like when she ran to her boyfriend's house and he came out dead.
He just fell out of the closet at the most opportune time for no reason.
But she also ran past like 5 houses coming home that she could have stopped in and been like, hey, bunch of crazy shit's happening at my house. Mm-hmm. Would you mind calling 911, please?
Right.
I think it's also just part of me getting older watching these films where I think of stuff like that. And I also think like with the kid, I was thinking like, oh man, he's going to be so messed up for the rest of his life.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah.
So this is based on a true story, right?
So I was going to ask about that because did you read anything about?
I tried.
Okay.
I spent a long time trying to find that one fact. So there's just not any facts about this movie. It's just too new. Mm-hmm. And so I was gonna read Thanksgiving facts if we were going the tradition route. But anyway, so I tried. So that picture at the end. They show a picture at the end.
Yes, and it says based on a mostly true story or something.
Yeah. So one of the guys who wrote it, I guess supposedly that happened to him. Not they hired like a pilgrim, but to come to their Thanksgiving, and I think it was based off of that. So my guess is they hired a reenactor to come to tell the story or something like that, and he just rolled with it to turn it into a horror film.
Yeah.
I find anything else, and if someone listening to this knows, please tell me because I'm freaking out about it.
Yeah, I would like to know if there was actually a murdering pilgrim in a real person's house.
Yeah.
Also, like, how much of it was like, did the pilgrim cook another person, or did they raise a shed in the backyard?
In like 30 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just I guess kind of going back to the horror perspective or like how it was trying to be scary or whatever, I think a big part of it kind of ties into what you were talking about where you're realizing that the pilgrims are like slightly more than human or like harder to kill because they show up in the beginning and they're just kind of creepy. And you're like, yeah, those people are weird. And then the more they talk, the weirder they get. And Ethan starts doing this thing where he like looks up and talks to the sky, like talking to God or something. But the way that he does that, the phrasing and the way he talks about it is just extra, I guess, foreboding. Like there's one part where he's with the scene with the candy where he's talking to Tate and then he looks up at the sky and says, see that? I didn't have to take everything from this one to teach him, did I? Mm-hmm. Which sort of implies that in the past he has had to take everything to teach people. And also foreshadows, later in the movie. So that's just sort of unsettling. And that's where I think, the camera work and the sound and everything just sort of gave it that creepy undertone. Mm-hmm. So through sort of probably the first half of the movie or so, it's just kind of building towards that. You don't really know what's going on. You don't really know what the deal is with these people, but they're not normal. And you're starting to suspect that either they have evil intentions or they're so crazy that their good intentions will come out in an evil way. And so then it was kind of a transition at the point where Patience kills Catherine. And that's the scene where the boyfriend comes home and then he sees her like churning the blood butter and then finds his mom in the other room and then he gets attacked. So at that point, like now there's real danger, but it's been sort of like not direct, I guess. Because like poisoning, you don't really think of that's not like a slasher killing. You know what I mean? That's like and there's nothing supernatural about it. There's nothing really out of the ordinary. At that point, these could just be people showing up to like rob them. But then she goes back to the other house, and then things start escalating really, really fast. And one thing I really liked was how the other pilgrims just started randomly showing up. There was no discussion about it or anything, and everybody just treated it like it was totally normal. It was almost like everybody was hypnotized or under the influence of the pilgrims in a way that they were just accepting whatever was happening. And so they were almost building like a camp. And so it's like the family is starting to feel surrounded in their own home. And then it starts to get like legit violent.
The dad starts getting involved at that point, as far as like they walk in.
Yeah.
Cody walks in and he's like laughing with them while smoking a pipe. And you just saw the scene where like what was her name? The girlfriend's
Catherine?
The boyfriend's mom was like giving the drink, and so you're like, oh, I bet he's smoking the devil's lettuce or something worse. And so you see that, and so you're like, oh, okay, they're gonna kind of convert him, and like it just kept throwing you for the curveballs. Just extra pilgrims, the dad thinking the dad's involved, just constant,
Yeah.
But,
and then like we see in a lot of horror movies, at the end it like really ramped up and just had like the long, intense sort of action sequence on the way out.
Yeah.
And every time you thought like, okay, now it's really over, it wasn't. And it just kind of kept going. And I was really interested, well, and I guess this kind of goes throughout the movie, the way they use sound, but I was really interested by the music selection at the end. Like when because Cody and her mom and Tate are all trying to get away. They catch Cody and her mom. They have them tied up at the table, and then they bring out the platter, and the dad has been like dismembered and cooked. And so the pilgrims are like force feeding them pieces of the dad. It's so gross. But they're playing like this like 90s R&B music, which does not fit at all.
It didn't fit, but I was like, oh, I was just so cool with it, man.
Yeah.
It literally does not. I mean, there was no theme of that song,
Yeah.
It was just there. And it was so great. I was like, this is exciting.
Yeah. But then, so I guess the big climax of the story was predictably that Cody had mixed in some of the poison berries with the other berries that all of the pilgrims were eating. So then they all start vomiting blood, and she and her mom are able to get out and fight them and make their way to freedom. But I felt like the music really was a big piece of that, in that it wasn't like setting that up to be super scary, I guess. So it felt like it was more a hell yeah, they're getting their revenge or they're getting away, not a, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, I hope they can make it out. Mm-hmm. Which was, made it maybe more satisfying, but less scary, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I think, I think at that point, I think at the end, when the berries, after they had ate the berries, you realize what she had done. Mm-hmm. And the guy's kind of crawling out. The whole time I'm watching that, even though it's like kind of foreshadowing, like he's fixing to go, like I'm still constantly thinking like, okay, it's a dream, something, and then he rolls over and he has the wishbone in his hand, and it's all based off the wish, but it still leaves the questions of like, who the hell were these people? Like,
right, exactly.
Did they just show up and start, deciding, was it just like a crazy cult? They said they couldn't find anything on them and just all that. So.
Well, yeah, and it was weird because the mom was advertising it as like everyone who's used them said it changed their lives and was super like productive and positive. So what was different about this one than the previous ones, or were those reviews fake, or what? I mean, it didn't spell out a lot. It didn't really build out a lot of the world outside of what was going on there.
I also thought it would have been great if like a random Native American would have came in and saved the day again.
Yeah.
That's an original Thanksgiving joke for it.
There was the part in the beginning where Cody was like, "Oh, great, let's honor the whitewashed history of Native American genocide."
Yeah.
I just clapped.
Yeah, I stood up and saluted it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
the part as far as the true story, this is what I was trying to find. This is an interview with him. So it was Noah Feinberg, and it says Noah was so this is Marcus Dunstan was answering this. The story was brought to life through Noah Feinberg. Noah was the full conduit that brought us all together, including Patrick Melton. It is based on a true story. The last image in the credits is an actual photo of young Noah and the Pilgrim that came to his home, never broke character, inspiring a duration of terror. The first draft I read was by Noah, and it was awesome. It instantly grabbed every image that was projected by the framework of Norman Rockwell and stimulus that we are supposed to be seeing in the Thanksgiving season by slowly burning it all away. It really also goes back to Blumhouse, as they curated such a wonderful atmosphere and inspired people, whatever. So I guess this was inspired by the fact that a pilgrim came and never broke character, which would be very terrifying if you're a young kid and realizing.
Especially a Native American kid, right?
Yeah. But, we'd be freaking out.
Yeah, I've read some history books. Yeah. But yeah, so... Yeah, that's interesting. I guess there wasn't a lot of murder or cannibalism in the original story, but so it goes.
You never know. There could have been. Don't get down.
Oh, maybe the twist was they ate the pilgrim. He just didn't want to tell you that part.
Do you think that Do you think this movie was so good, or was it just really good because we've had some bad openers?
I think that it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, you asked me that. It took me a second to respond.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed watching it. I don't think this is like one of my, scariest movies of all time, but I think it was a good, well-made movie with some legit horror elements that fully embraced and created like a good, scary Thanksgiving environment. Like we have talked before about, the lack of horror movies for other holidays and how we kind of like having that, like with Halloween and Black Christmas and things like that, because they're super tied to like that tradition. And it's a way that we can sort of combine our love of horror movies with our enjoyment of the holiday and the changing of the seasons and everything else. And so having a solid one for Thanksgiving now is kind of cool. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
And I also like the idea that they're doing it for multiple holidays. So
yeah, I'm very excited. To check out more
4th of July. And,
yeah.
Do you know that on the first Thanksgiving it was celebrated 1621 over a 3-day harvest festival? It included 50 pilgrims, 90 Native Americans, and lasted 3 days. I already said that, but it's believed by historians that only 5 women were present.
A major sausage party. One other thing I had in my notes that I thought was really cool and I wanted to ask you about. There was the scene where towards the very, very beginning when Cody is like tucking Tate in at night. Mm-hmm. And as she's leaving the room, Tate says, "Cody, I hope your wish comes true." And then as the scene is changing, they like replay that line in like a super distorted kind of like almost demonic, otherworldly sounding effect. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
No, that was...
where it was just like a normal piece of dialogue that was significant to the future, so as the scene is changing, they just like play it back super messed up.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I really liked it.
Real original. Yeah. So. I liked it too. Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Yep. So I think overall, we would probably both give this movie a thumbs up.
Yeah, I give it a 7.1.
Nice.
That's out of 50.
No, not so nice.
But 50 is the lowest number you could be.
Oh, so okay.
Sorry, I just like that. I like those responses. Okay.
So where would Under the Skin? What would you give it?
50. Under the Skin has its own 50 to 100 category, in which it's 101. No. Also, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Oh yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
I want to say this too. I don't personally give a shit if you're thankful or not. I'm just going out there. I'm not going to tell someone what to do. I'm going to be thankful maybe, but if I decide to.
Yeah. But that's between you and the Great Thanksgiving Turkey.
Oh yeah, dude. A smoked turkey, best turkey I ever had.
Guess
who made it? Myself.
I was going to ask if you made it yourself or if you bought it somewhere.
Yeah, dude. No, I smoked it last year. It's the best ever. I'm not being cocky. I had never liked turkey until I had that one, so I'm really nervous about this year.
Yeah, you kind of set the bar high, and now you got to try and live up to it.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, I hope everyone does have a good holiday. Don't be down in the holidays.
I'm not gonna lie. I used to really, really always look forward to and love Thanksgiving. That was like my favorite holiday because it didn't have all of the overhead that comes with Christmas. It was just let's just get together with family and hang out and have a couple days off from work.
Pumpkin pie by Jerry.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
And watch some football. Just like good low-key family time. But now living so far away from family, it comes with
it's like an event.
8 to 10 hour drive on both sides, and then trying to deal with work and getting the dog from one place to another, and trying to figure out how do I see my parents and her parents, and when are we there? And it just feels like it's all this travel and logistics and overhead, and it's hard to get into it as much.
Well, so I will say it is this year. However, you just need to do what we did this year. Was I technically had to work the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, that sucks.
And so I just sent out the invite and said, hey, we're having Thanksgiving at our house. If you want to come, let me know now, and we'll make sure we have food for everyone. And it's like that way, if people come, cool. Mm-hmm. If they don't, doesn't matter. I'm still smoking a turk out and back.
Yeah.
So when you guys get your house, you could do that. Just be like, everyone come over this year. I'll come down. Okay. I'll smoke a turkey.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. I like it. So next year, you'll come down, we'll watch Pilgrim, and smoke a turkey, and eat a Pilgrim.
Probably, still piss off your dad the way that we used to when we were younger. Get a backbreaker.
Yep.
End of conversation.
Yep. Another Thanksgiving with a body count. And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.